Hi, I'm Robert, and welcome back to another edition of the High Deseret Ranch Channel, along with finding out just what it's like to live the high life. Today we're going to talk to you and show you a way that 4 ways to save on hay waste, which translates to saving you a lot of money. So come along and join me, and let's talk those methods. All right, so I'm going to start with the top one, and it's one of those that if you are doing this, you might be new to the ranching farming world. That's fine. A lot of people post 2020 and beyond, they've made a lot of different choices with their life and where they've chosen to live and what they do, how they raise their food. But if you're doing one of these things, this is one that's going to absolutely blow your mind, and that is hay that is fed unrestricted. So in my case, I'll turn around and show you one of the methods that I do, which is one of these 4. If you feed unrestricted, so that means you just toss it onto the ground, you just throw them a bale of hay or whatever, provide them as much feed as they want. Cattle, get this, can waste up to 45% of the hay provided. So let's break that down as far as, let's take, like I got right here behind me, there's 2 cows that they're going to be calving here in early March. They're right around 1,200 pounds. And the national average for a ton of good alfalfa hay for cattle is right around $210 a ton. So if you take the total body weight of one of these cows at 1,200 pounds, and it's a little varied as far as how much a day, but let's take 2.25% of their total body weight, or 27 pounds a day. If you feed them like we have to here in the high desert, over 6,000 feet, we basically feed them for 6 months over the winter. That is a waste of $229 per head if you have them just unrestricted, all the hay they can want. And one of that is because they lay on it, they trample on it. It's going to be a given between turned into the mud, things of that nature. So if you haven't already, please like and subscribe. And that's a great way to say, hey, thanks, Robert. You just saved me a whole lot of money, because if you've got 10 head, you're talking a few $1,000s just in hay costs right there. As far as literally throwing money on the ground, you might as well take out a handful of cash in your wallet and throw it on the ground in the pasture and let it just sit there. So craziness right there. As part of that first method, it's one of those things that studies also show too, that if you feed the cows on a daily basis, which I do here, a lot of ranchers and farmers kind of feed them every other day or 3 or 4 days, believe it or not, some of these larger operations, it can reduce the need to feed 25% less hay. So between those two things, that's a huge amount. However, some people, they figure, what the heck, what the hay? That costs a lot more, takes a lot more time and costs more money to run my equipment. So I'm just going to let them eat unrestricted. The second method, and that's probably the most common, what most ranchers guys do, and it's what I do, is just to feed it directly onto the ground. Now in this case, I've just tossed over the fence. I've got my haystack right here, and the cows, you can see, they're loving it. Even these little steers over here, they're loving it. Larger operations, they roll it out in big, they have like the round bells, and they use a tractor to roll things out onto the ground. But you want to watch, do that simple calculation of 2.25% a day of, take your average cow for your herd, and just watch how much they're actually eating in a day. You want to make sure that your animals are cleaning it up if you're going to choose the second method of rolling out your hay or feeding loose bales of hay on the ground. You don't want to starve them, but you want to watch for their condition. That's another great way versus the completely unrestricted way. And you have a little bit less waste. Usually right here, we really don't average a lot of waste. There's always going to be a little bit, but it's well below 5%. More like 2 or 3% is the amount of hay waste we have in the total feeding out in a winter season. And the third way is to limit the access that the cows have, your cattle, by placing physical barriers to decrease that hay loss. You've probably seen them before. You've seen the bell rings, feed mangers, things of that way. There's even something that people like to use. It's called bell pod grazing. these are all forms of limiting the access that your animals have to decrease the waste. The nice part about these, and you gotta to think about with your feed mangers or bell rings, is you want to have a solid barrier down at the bottom. That prevents the animal, your cow, from pulling out the hay onto the ground and then just trampling it. So these something also to keep in mind is if you do this, there's going to be that additional cost of equipment and even time, which if you're a large operation, that might be adds not only significant time, but also a significant increase in output of money to feed your herd. Or the fourth and final method is something that I do here. So I actually take a combination of two of these things, and that is to tarp your hay and to actually lay a pallet down on the ground. If you do both these methods, especially where you have snow, a snow region like where we're at here in the high desert, by doing both of these, you're going to save upwards of 15% of hay loss, because you're not going to get the rot. Especially if you can't do the tarp, it might be too expensive. And especially if you can find the pallets for free. If anything, do the pallets, because check this out. See this? The hay is absolutely green. It's not rotted. There's not mud or anything. And then with your tarp up top, you don't get all the seepage that comes down. So 15%, remember, go back to that $210 per ton. If you're losing 15% of all your hay, that's a lot of hay. And especially if you can't afford a hay barn or something like this, this is a great option. And I just love the pallets too. They're free. They can be used for several seasons because they've been preserved, kept out of the weather. And then you can actually get extra pallets to wrap around your haystack to prevent deer from getting into your hay. So if you like what you've seen, please like, subscribe, not for me, but for other people. It connects other people through YouTube to this kind of content, especially if you found this content helpful. Please like. Again, it's one of those things that you only get so many trips around the sun, so decide what you're going to do today and don't waste your hay. Am I right? So again, glad that hopefully we could be your ticket to help escape the ordinary and find out just what it's like to live the high life here in the high desert of the Intermountain West, only on the High Deseret Ranch Channel.